All right, good morning, everybody. I am Professor Ben Jansen. I'll be teaching this course this semester. So before we get started, do a little introduction. So I've been teaching here about 5 years now. I was teaching at Florida Atlantic University for about 3 years before starting here. This is the first time I've ever taught financial statement analysis. So I'm hoping that you'll be giving me feedback throughout the course and after class on what needs improvement. There's probably going to be a lot of it. Usually it takes me about 3 semesters before I get a class anywhere to where I like it, but I'm going to be doing my best to make sure you're at least getting the information you really need to work with. So a little bit about me. My research is mostly in valuation and market efficiency, developing and testing theories in that area. So this is kind of completely pretty far away from most of what I usually work on. But it's really important stuff. We're going to be watching a video in a minute just kind of detailing why it's so important for you. But as finance majors, this is the sort of thing that you're going to be working on throughout your career. So very important that you're familiar with it. One interesting thing that I learned, particularly about MTSU students after I started working here, is that roughly 85% of you are going to be working around Nashville after you graduate. Right, so there's a really good chance that you're going to be working with, working for, or in charge of people that you're going to school with. So, I've noticed a lot of you already are familiar with some people, and that's awesome. Highly encourage you to attend any sort of networking event that's going on. I'll be posting any information about scholarships, events, stuff like that on D2L. So when I get information about that, I'll be sending it on to you. And I highly encourage you that you take time to work with and meet other people while you're going through school. I always try to impress on people the importance of networking and getting to know people. The only reason I ended up with a job here was because I just happened to have discussed some of the faculty members here research years before I ever went on the job market. So you never know when you're going to make an impression that leads to your dream job, but you got to get out there and meet people in order for that to happen. All right, so that's a little bit about me. I want you guys to introduce yourselves, hopefully get to know each other a little bit throughout this semester. So if you could start us off, please. Great. Yeah, great. Thank you. Great. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. The Blue Raider Finance Club, right? Yeah, that's a great opportunity to go meet some of your fellow students. There's going to be activities. We're going to be going to the TBA conference again in the spring. So definitely an awesome opportunity to meet and work with some of your students. Right. Yeah, a lot of people coming toward the end. That's good stuff. All right. Back there. All right, well, great to meet all of you. Some of you are returning students from corporate in the spring, so nice to see you back. Yeah, so like I said, right, good chance that you might be meeting people here, and it's always a good idea to just hold on to the networking opportunities. Right, job changes happen, you never know what's gonna happen in your future. I had some old friends from my graduating institution reach out about jobs this year. Unfortunately, I don't go up for tenure until next year, so I don't know if I'm gonna keep my job here until then, but you know, you never know where your next opportunity is going to come from. So get to know people. That's something that was difficult for me personally. I'm not much of a networker. I prefer just staying home, playing video games, and reading and that sort of thing. But when you have the opportunity, definitely recommend you take advantage of that. All right. So today is going to be a pretty short class. Basically, just going to talk about the syllabus, the course. And look a little bit through Edgar, which is where you're going to be getting a lot of the information that you're going to be using. We'll probably save the intro to financial statement analysis until next time. All right, so my office is just down the hall. Starting next week, I'll have office hours before class. If you need to meet, we can meet kind of throughout the week, especially if it's just over something like Zoom, very flexible with schedule and being able to meet with you. So if you're not able to meet physically, we can just do that remotely. Like I mentioned in the email, there is no required textbook. When I took over this class, it was a required textbook, but I hate with a passion the textbook companies and how much they charge, especially after going through school, and they can suck. So I try to have free information available for you. I'm still working on building up a library of resources that you can use specifically for this class, but there's already some free information available on D2L. But some people do like studying out of textbooks, so if that's something you want, this is the textbook that's historically connected with this class. All right, so broadly speaking, what we're going to be doing in here is looking through financial statements. Up until this point, you've probably seen a good deal of financial statement information, and we're just going to dive a little bit deeper into that in order to build your understanding on where you're going to draw out important information, particularly when you're valuing a company. Right? Anyone that was in my corporate class hopefully knows or remembers, right, the two most important things about finance: valuation and funding. Right? Those are the two most important things, and financial statement analysis ties directly into each of those. And we're going to be just diving into more in-depth analysis of financial statements. All right, so pretty standard grading scale. You're going to be graded on your homework, your course project, and your exam. And these are going to be all pretty closely related. So I very strongly encourage you that you're working on these throughout the course and are paying attention to it, because by the time you come to the exam, it's going to be pretty reflective of what you've already been working on through the homework and your project. All right, so there are 4 homework assignments. They're going to be posted, basically available for you for week chunks at a time. So when it becomes available, I definitely recommend you get started on that right away. There's also going to be a project that you're going to be working on throughout the course. So in addition to the weekly homeworks, you'll have sections of the project that you're going to be working through as we go through. And then finally, you're going to have a take-home valuation project for your exam, and that's going to be available at the end of the course. All right, so this is our plan schedule. You can go through it on the syllabus, but basically just lays out homeworks are going to be available starting on Mondays, and then they're going to be due on the following Sunday. Right, and also the different sections of your project throughout the term when those are going to be due as well. All right, so like I mentioned, Edgar is what we're going to be using through a lot of this course. So Edgar is just where all the information for companies' financial statements are going to be posted and available freely online. So if you look for a company like Walmart, it'll bring you to the web page for that company. And it's going to, here it has all of the financial statements that they're required to be posting. So a great example looking at the 10K. All right, and this brings us to the information that you're going to be using for your evaluation projects and homeworks and such. All right, so Edgar, it's relatively straightforward, right? Basically just a search engine for companies' financial statements, but there's a lot of great and freely available information on here. We'll talk about some other resources that you have available to you. Unfortunately, some of the best ones like Bloomberg and Capital IQ are pay locked, but there's a lot of great information in those through those companies if you do have access to them. And while we're outside, so everything that you need for the class is already posted on D2L, right? Here's where I'm going to be posting all the course note information that you're going to be working with. Also have PowerPoints available, and homeworks are going to become available as they're going to be due for you. All right, so before we keep going, Professor Greg Nagel, his brother, works in industry and often has to deal with financial statement analysis. So they did a little interview just to help motivate this course.
Jeff, what is financial statement analysis and why use it?
Thanks, Greg. It's nice to be introduced by your brother. I was going to get positive reviews, but he's right. When he was talking to me over time about the different courses he taught, when he talked about this one, financial statement analysis, I lit up because this is one of the two core skills that I've used pretty much every single day of my business career, right into and including this week, without fail. It's such an incredibly core approach to everything we do in business and investing that you've really got to use it and know it in order to be able to be successful in business. And before I talk about what financial statement analysis is, I'll give you a way of thinking about why this is so important. Almost every single activity in a company, one way or another, comes back to impact the income statement, the cash flow, or the balance sheet. You could say, well, what about a marketing campaign? Well, if I'm spending advertising dollars or doing design of the campaign, I will see that on my general administrative expense line. If I'm launching a new product, I'll see R&D expenses, and I'll see prototype expenses, and I'll see launch expenses. If I'm building a new plant, I'll see capital equipment expenditures and new vendors. Anywhere I decide to put a push on in the business, I'll see headcount that'll translate into wages. Every single element of how a business operates in one way or another filters back through those statements. So if you can, through this course, really get to understand how to look at each one of those statements and peel deeper and deeper into it, you can tell the story of how that company is operating, how it's being led, what it thinks is important, what it's doing well, and what it isn't. And I'd liken it to going in to see a doctor or a sports medicine doctor for performance improvement, or a regular doctor to find a problem. They'll sit there and they'll talk to you and they'll look at you and hear your story. But as soon as they get beyond that first few minutes, they're going to want to start doing tests that give them some numerical or quantitative way of understanding what's going on. Those tests can be temperature and heart rate and weight and blood pressure. Then they'll go on into blood analysis, a whole series of different markers, or MRIs and CAT scans and x-rays. And depending on the type of problem, they'll take a snapshot of those today, and then they'll say, come on back in a month or 2 months, we'll see how those have trended and changed. And the whole intent there is for the doctor to be able to put an entire picture together. I've got this 21-year-old person, they're in really good shape, but they're having a problem here. I can see this blood marker, I can see this fracture, old fracture and a scar, whatever it is. And I'll put together an entire picture of who this person is and what we think is wrong, or what we think the improvement opportunity is. And then they'll make a recommendation. Could be a change in your routine, it could be a surgery, it could be pharmaceutical, whatever it is, they'll change. And then you'll come back in a month or 2 months, whatever they say, and they'll run the same set of tests to say, okay, did we actually fix that problem? Can we look under the hood, if you will, and see whether or not those markers that originally told us there was a problem or opportunity, if they have changed? It's the same way that I look at financial statement analysis. Anytime I look at a new company to make an investment, or I'm operating a company and trying to understand where there are opportunities to change, I need to go under the hood. It's not enough to walk outside of a company, look at its buildings and its lobby and tell me whether or not it's going on, or to talk to a chief executive and say the person looks like they're competent or not. I need numbers. I need to understand what's really going on, just like the doctor does. So if somebody tells me revenues are growing really well, what does that mean? What regions are they growing well in? What customers are they growing well with? What products are they growing well with? What salespeople are driving growth? But on top of that, is the growth coming from price, like it has a lot in the last few years, or is it coming from volume? Or maybe they've done tremendously well in growth, but their problem is that they've got a cost issue. And so now I've got to dig in. Is that from the manufacturing cost? Is it from sourced raw materials? Is it efficiency in the plant? Or is it general administrative expenses that have gotten out of control? With all of that, I can begin to tell a story. This is a young, high growth company that's doing incredibly well, but it doesn't have enough cash to satisfy its receivables as it grows. Okay, I can fix that. This is an old established company. It's done really well for a long time, but it's got a new entrant in, and you see one product line that it's core beginning to fall off, or it's got costs rising from inflation and never had to raise prices in the past, and now it does. Whatever it is, that financial statement analysis is going to let me dig into each one of those elements and determine why the change is taking place, how rapidly it is, and what might be solvable, what you might do to address it. Then, just like with the doctor, 1 month later, at the end of the next month, at the end of the next quarter, I'm going to come back and say, have those markers changed? Is this really working? So for me, as I said at the beginning, it's one of the two most core skill sets I use throughout my entire business career. And it really doesn't stop there. It's also in my personal investing and my personal budgeting. It's just a core skill to everything about how I handle anything financial related at all. You know, each one of my kids are now grown and out of college. None of them pursued a pure business degree, but I asked all of them to take this course, this financial statement analysis course, because ultimately it's the language of business and you need to be able to use it regardless of where you are. So I did say it was one of two core skills. It's critical to be able to understand what the problem is. And I think financial statement analysis and its next course, which would be planning and projection, I think those are critical. But at the end of the day, you always end up working through people. No matter what answer you come to, whether it's in growth or it's in cost or it's in cash, and it's this product or it's this salesperson or it's this marketing campaign or it's this accounting function or whatever it is, after you understand the answer, you always have to come back and work through people. And so when I said there's two skills, one is the analysis for sure, but the other is the EQ, the emotional and relationship skills that it takes to take that knowledge that you've just developed and work through other people in a way that gets them all on board thinking. And of course, having good analysis and really clear analysis helps, because a big part of working with other people is communication. But at the end of the day, you're only going to get things done if you both really understand the problem, the right answer, and you really understand and value how to work with other people to get them to move toward the goal. And of course, as you move toward the goal, we're going to right back to financial statement analysis to tell me whether or not I'm actually moving at the pace and in the direction the way I expected. So at the start of your financial statement analysis course, I hope you learned a ton this semester and find it to be as useful throughout your life and your business career as I did. But to me, it's an incredibly exciting skill set for understanding the world of business. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, so two main things I want you to kind of take out of that. First and foremost, the language of business. Right? Financial statements, there's a lot of information contained in them, but really that's how we communicate and convey information in the field of business. So it's very important that you are at least at an introductory level familiar with financial statements, because that's basically how you're going to be gauged throughout the course of your career. Right? How do you affect the bottom line of a company? And the other thing is how all information in a company basically trickles down into their financial statement, right? And that's true, right? Financial statements, as we'll be learning a little bit more throughout the course, they are estimates built on assumptions, but over time they incorporate all information and all the production of a company. So anything that goes on within a company will eventually bear out in the company's financial statements in one way or another. So can anyone remind me, what is the baseline goal of a company? You're in the right direction. You're in the right direction, not phrasing it quite correctly. Closer? Yeah. Getting a little further away. All right. So, close, but not quite, right? So broadly speaking, maximizing shareholder value is the goal, right? Maximizing shareholder value. Now the next thing is, how exactly are we measuring that value? I heard profits. Profits are close, but they're not quite how we measure that value. No, it's something that we're going to be measuring and looking at in here. No, that's the top line. But it's not profits, related to profits. Cash flows. Cash flows are what matter. And we're going to be talking in depth a lot of the reasons why we're focusing on cash flows rather than profitability. Biggest top line reasons are time value of money, right? Anyone forget time value of money at this point? Ball break? Okay, we'll have a quick refresher on time value of money then as well, right? But the timing of cash matters. When you receive a cash flow matters to the value of that cash flow, right? So a great example, who here would like $1 million in their account? Would anyone like an extra, maybe you already have several millions, maybe you'll have an additional million. Would you like an additional million if you already have millions? Everyone pretty much, yeah. Okay, what if you receive that $1 million 1,000 years from now? Does that matter? Does that $1 million that you can claim in 1,000 years matter to you? It in no way affects your life. You derive no benefit from receiving $1 million 1,000 years from now. You'll be dead, right? Sorry, but you will be. Good chance that AI might be able to integrate our minds in some way in the next couple of centuries, but more likely than not, we're not there, right? So if you receive $1 million today, great. 1,000 years from now, it has no value to you. Now that's a pretty drastic example, but that's time value of money in effect. The further into the future you receive a cash flow, the less valuable it is today. And there's always that inverse relationship, right? So the purchasing power of money changes across time, the purchasing power of an asset. And we need to adjust for the timing of those cash flows in order to actually get the tangible value of those cash flows. One of the ways we do that is by measuring cash flow rather than profit, because cash flow adjusts for when cash actually changes hands. Profit is a pure accounting term that has a lot of assumptions embedded into it. One of the key ones is that when an economic event occurs, cash value is changing hands. But in actuality, that is not the case. So that's one of the top reasons that we are adjusting for cash flow. The other reason that we adjust profits for cash flow is that cash flow is not as manipulatable as profits are. Right? Companies have a pretty long track record of putting forth financial statements that are relatively, what's the phrase? Painted with rose-tinted glasses, I think, something like that. They make it look nicer than it actually is, right? And so starting in I think it was the late 70s or early 80s, the SEC started requiring companies publish cash flow statements in addition to the income statement and the balance sheet. The reason being is cash flows are not as manipulatable as any other financial metric that we're looking at because it is adjusting for all those areas that management have discretion over, and it's adjusting those discretionary areas to reflect true changes in cash. All right, so bottom line goal for this course is for you to understand financial statements and how to translate those financial statements into useful information, particularly the bottom line goal of a firm for how much value is being generated or destroyed through cash flows being generated or destroyed. All right, so like I said, everything you are going to need is going to be freely available on Edgar. And you are going to be using this as a resource to get the information that you need for throughout this class. All right, so in investments, very often we're concerned with looking at returns and tying that into performance of companies. But one of the key differences between investments and corporate is basically where we're going for information. Right? When we're doing market sort of analysis, we may look more toward market participants. When we're dealing with financial statement analysis, we're going straight to the bottom line of a company and looking through the financial statements that they publish, and then taking on additional information that we can bring from those financial statements to try to make decisions. Right? Finance in general is about decision making, particularly under uncertainty. Right? The future is uncertain. We don't know what is going to happen, but there are decisions that we can make today that are likely going to benefit our future through understanding historical average relationships. Right? So a great example being the level of educational attainment. One of the two most important determinants of a person's salary throughout the course of their career is the level of their education and the field that they choose to work in. By far, that makes up about 80 to 95% of a person's salary is their level of education and the field that they work in. There are other relevant factors, but those make up the vast majority in every single study that evaluates the determinants of a person's salary throughout their career. Right? So you don't know exactly how much you're going to make. You might not know exactly where you're going to be working. But getting the next level of your education, finishing your bachelor's degree, is one of the largest steps you can make from the previous salary pool that you had access to. Right? So the future is uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen, but you're making a decision right now that is likely going to benefit you throughout the course of your career because educational attainment level is one of the largest determinants for your salary. Right? So decision making is our goal in this field. We want to be able to make those decisions today that benefit us in the future. Hopefully, as you go through investment classes, you'll see the importance of investing early on in your career because that's one of the largest determinants of your wealth when you try to retire. Right? But all in all, what we're here to do is to try to make decisions. All right, so I mentioned today is going to be a short class, so this will be the last thing that we wrap up with. Just a quick reminder on what we're going to be dealing with, right? So balance sheet, money coming into a company, where that money is being allocated within the firm. That's what balance sheets show. Liabilities reflect cash coming in through external capital sources or being retained through previous profitable years, and where they're being allocated within the firm. Being held in cash, being invested in property, plant, and equipment, being invested in IP. So balance sheet reflects the level of assets and liabilities currently being held. Income statements are a reflection of revenues net of costs, driving how much profit the company is generating over a quarter or a year. And the cash flow statement is basically the combination of information derived from both the income statement and the balance sheet, reflecting the change in cash position of a company. And it's cash that really matters. We're going to talk about that a lot throughout the course, but cash flow is really what matters when we're looking at the value of a company, of a project, of any decision that we're going to be. And finally, we'll be looking at statement of shareholders' equity. So basically just information about value being generated by the company and the way that value might be distributed amongst companies or amongst shareholders and decision making that shareholders are going to have to make. All right, so we're going to put it on hold here. Next class, we're going to have a quick review of time value of money. That's going to be an important thing always to keep in mind in this field. So we're going to start off with that, and then we'll continue with the introduction into financial statements. I'm going to be posting, it's going to be under the quizzes on D2L, and I'll send you an email, but I have to submit attendance by Sunday. So I'll be sending out an email on how to get recorded for attendance, and that's particularly important if you have scholarships or anything like that. If I mark you as not attending, then you're not going to have access to those scholarships. So when I tell you how to get counted for attending the course, please make sure you respond. That'll be due by Saturday. All right, any questions before we get going? All right, then I'll email you that information about how to get counted for attendance, and I'll see you all on Tuesday. Just a reminder, you have so you don't have anything opening up this weekend. We'll talk about homework some more next week. Your first homework assignment is going to be open on October 30th. Next Tuesday, we'll also talk about that first section of the project that will be required next weekend. All right, have a good weekend. Take care. Yeah, where are you?